So this is Geometry chapter 2.1. We are doing truth tables. So truth table value of a statement, this is like if the statement is either true or false. So truth tables basically they are logical true tools to evaluate the truth value of the geometric statements. So for example, we did in the last class like conditional statement PQ. If P, then Q. So this is P. If, for example, if a polygon has three sides, then it is a triangle. So if P, then Q. Converse is if Q, then P. Like if a polygon is a triangle, then it has three sides. So it is if Q, then P. And inverse is like not P and not Q. So we know this is a sign of not or negation. Okay, so this is if a polygon does not have three sides, then it is not a triangle. Okay, so if not P, then not Q. Okay, and this is contrapositive. If a polygon is not a triangle, means if not Q, then not P. Okay, so let's make a truth table and see how we can how we can make a truth table for that. Okay, for the given conditions. So let's make a conditional truth table for a conditional statement PQ, where P is the hypothesis and Q is the conclusion. And this here means if P, then Q. Okay, so the P and Q can be either true or false. There are two values. Okay, so there will be four scenarios when both are true. When P is true, Q is false. When Q is false, P is false, Q is true, and when both are false. Okay. So when both are true, when P is true and Q is true, then if P, then Q is true. Okay. When P is true and Q is false, then if P, then Q is false. And if hypothesis is false, like here, and conclusion is true, then it is true. And if P is false and Q is false, then also it is true. So the only statement, only P, if P, then Q is only false when hypothesis is true, but it gives false conclusion. Okay. So the conditional statement if P then Q is only false when a true hypothesis produces a false conclusion. So let's do question 14 and then our concepts will be more clear. So we have to make a truth table for P not Q. We know this is sign for not, negation. Means if it is true, it becomes false. False means true, opposite. Okay. So we'll write first P, Q, and then we will write not Q, and then we will write if P, then not Q table. Okay. So first, all the four possibilities, these are both are true. P is true, Q is false. P is false, Q is true, and both are false. And not Q means opposite of Q. So true means false, true, false, and true. Now we have to consider both of these only. Okay, P and not Q. If P, then not Q. Hypothesis is here P, this is hypothesis, and this is conclusion. Okay, so we know that the conditional statement P, if P, then Q is only false when a true hypothesis produces a false conclusion. In this case, not Q is the conclusion. Not Q is the conclusion. Means only case when true P is true and uh, not Q is false, that will only give false. So our first statement would be false because this true hypothesis true gives Q false. Okay. And rest when both are true gives true. When both are false gives true. And when P is false, but Q is also Q is not Q is true, that time also it gives true. Okay, so it only gives false when true hypothesis, this is hypothesis, and this is conclusion. So when conclusion is false and hypothesis is true, rest all are true. So this is our table for if P then not Q. Okay. I hope it is clear. Let's do one more question. So question 15 requires us to make a table for not if P then Q. So first we have to find if P then Q and then negate it. So let's make a truth table for this. So we'll put all the four scenarios when both are true and one of them is true and one is false, and when both are false. Okay, so this is from the basic of the first truth table we had. Okay, so from here we'll see it is only false when a true hypothesis gives false conclusion. Okay, so this will be true, this is false, and both of these are true. Okay, when both are false, it is true. When P is false, this is hypothesis. Okay, and so now this is negation, means whatever is P, whatever is if P then Q, this is negation, means opposite of that, negative. So when it is true, this becomes false, and when is false, it is true. When this is true, it is false, and when this is true, it is false. Okay. So in this, we first found made if P and if P then Q this table, and then we negated it. So this is a truth table for not P, not if P then Q table. Okay. Let's do one more problem. Just remembering in this only this case gives false when there is true, when a true hypothesis gives a false conclusion, and then we negated it. So it was only one false here, but when we negated it, it gives only one true here. So now we have to make a truth table for this So this is little complicated, but we'll do it. So what is this asking is not of if not P, then not Q. Okay, so first we'll find if not P, then we'll find if not Q, then we will find if not P, then not Q, and whatever we get, we will negate it. This is a sign of negation. So let's make a table. So here we put all the four possibilities when both P and Q are true, when one of them is true, and when both are false. So let's start putting values. So what will be when uh, negation of P? So when it is true, it is false, then true and true. Here negation of Q means opposite. So when it is true, false, false, true, then false, and then true. Okay. Now, if not P, then not Q. So we will consider this and this table. So when both are false, it gives true. We know this when P, if not P is false, and basically when hypothesis is false and conclusion is true, here this one, then also we get true. Now in this case, here this, if hypothesis is true but conclusion is false, we get false. We know this when hypothesis is true but conclusion is false, then we get is false. Then this is false, or if not P and if not Q is false. When both are true, then it gives true. So this is we got if not P, if not Q. Now this is negation. Okay. Negation means whatever was here, we will make the opposite. If it was true, we will make it false. So this will give false, this will give false, this will give true, and this will give false. So this is our final answer. Okay, so if we do all the steps carefully, there are less chances of making mistakes. Okay, thanks for joining. Please keep practicing and please let me know if you need help.